She can sleep on the sofa. Those 6 words instantly shattered the 67 years I had spent believing I knew what family love was. And worst of all, they were spoken by my own son's wife, allocating the rooms in the house I had paid for, as if I were some homeless stray dog. But wait, because what happened after I heard that phrase changed not only my life, but the life of my entire family forever. And when you learn about the silent revenge I prepared, you'll understand why you should never, ever underestimate an American grandmother who has nothing left to lose. If you want to know how a 67-year-old woman became the nightmare of her manipulative daughter-in-law, subscribe now because this story is going to give you chills. My name is Martha. I am 67 years old, and what I'm about to tell you happened 3 months ago at a vacation home in Miami Beach, Florida, that I rented for $3,500. Money that came from my savings, from the pension I religiously saved since becoming a widow, dreaming of moments like this. A perfect week with my son Robert, my daughter-in-law Patty, and my 2 grandchildren. What I didn't know was that for Patty, I wasn't the grandmother who deserved respect. I was just the wallet, paying for everything. I was standing there, hiding behind the kitchen door, like a thief in my own reservation, listening to Patty explain the room distribution to her mother on the phone. Mom in the master, Dad in the second, the kids in the back. She can sleep on the sofa. She didn't even have the respect to use my name. My heart felt like it was trying to pound its way out of my chest. I felt the strength drain from my legs and had to grab the doorframe to keep from collapsing right there. Me? The woman who had worked double shifts at the factory to pay for Robert's education. The one who sold even my gold earrings to help him start his business. Was I going to sleep on the sofa in the house I was paying for? But what came next completely destroyed me. Oh, Mom. You'll see. Martha won't say anything. She's one of those old ladies who does everything to be liked. She paid for the whole house without anyone even asking her to. Can you believe it? Women of her generation are like that. Submissive. They put up with anything just to avoid causing trouble. Old lady, submissive, as if my 67 years of life, my sacrifices, my dignity, meant nothing. In that moment, something broke inside me. It wasn't just my heart. It was that image I had of myself as the understanding mother-in-law, the grandmother who always says yes, who never causes problems. That night, while they toasted on the terrace with the wine I had bought, celebrating their free vacation, I stayed alone in that kitchen looking out at the ocean. And for the first time in 3 years since I became a widow, I didn't cry from sadness. I cried from pure rage. Robert, my Robert, where was he while his wife was humiliating me? On the terrace shouting, "My love, the Wi-Fi is working perfectly for my video conferences." Video conferences during the family vacation his mother had paid for. But Patty made a mistake that night. A mistake that would cost her everything she had built by manipulating my son. Because when you think you have someone completely controlled, you relax, you become careless. And careless women leave their cell phones unlocked in places where submissive old ladies can find them. What I discovered on that phone in the early hours of the morning not only confirmed that Patty was worse than I imagined. She was a monster who had been planning to completely destroy me. But what she didn't know was that she had just woken up the wrong beast. Because when a woman my age decides she's no longer going to be submissive, she doesn't do it quietly anymore. And when she decides it's time for justice, oh my God, the justice that's coming. What I found on that cell phone chilled my blood and set in motion the most perfect revenge you can imagine. To understand how I ended up in that kitchen crying with rage while my daughter-in-law distributed my house, I have to tell you the story of a woman who believed that unconditional love always returns multiplied. A woman who was wrong. My story with Robert began when I was just 23 years old, and became a widow with an 8-month-old baby in my arms. Robert's father died in a construction accident, and I was left alone with a child and no inheritance other than debt and a broken heart. Do you know what it's like to get up every day at 4 in the morning to go to the garment factory, working 8 hours sewing school uniforms, and then rushing to Mrs. Rodriguez's house to pick up your son and take him to your second job cleaning offices until 10 at night? I did that for 18 years straight. Robert was my world, my reason for existing. Every dollar I earned had his name written on it. When he turned 5 and told me, "Mummy, I want to be an engineer like Billy's dad," I promised him he would be, even if I had to work myself to death. And I kept that promise. I sold his father's wedding ring to pay for private high school. I sold my gold earrings, the only ones I had, for his college textbooks. I worked Saturdays and Sundays to pay for his engineering supplies. When he graduated with honors from the Technological University, I was in the front row in my dress mended 3 times, but with the proudest heart in all of California. Robert was a good son, hard-working, respectful, affectionate. After graduating, he got a job at a construction company, and 2 years later, he came home with bright eyes telling me, "Mum, I want to start my own company. I have a partner. We have the projects. We just need initial capital." Initial capital? I had exactly $1,200 saved after 20 years of work. I gave it all to him, without asking, without conditions, because that's what American families do. When a son has a dream, the mother makes it possible. Robert's company grew. Within 5 years, he had contracts for over $500,000 annually. He bought his house, his truck, started dressing smartly, and I was still in my same little 2-bedroom house, but happy. Happy because my sacrifice had been worth it. Until Patty came along. I met her one Sunday after church. Robert introduced her to me on the steps of the rectory. "Mum, this is Patty. She's an administrator. She works at a bank." It was clear he was in love. His eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen since he was a child. Patty was kind to me from day one, maybe too kind. Always with perfect smiles, always saying the right words. "Mrs. Martha, Robert is so lucky to have such a hard-working mother." "Mrs. Martha, all the love you put into raising him is obvious." "Mrs. Martha, Robert tells me you made many sacrifices for him." At first, I thought it was good manners. Later, I understood it was strategy. I ignored the first signs because I didn't want to see what was happening. Like when Robert started cancelling our Sunday lunches because Patty had family commitments, or when he stopped calling me every day as he had for 30 years. "Patty says married men need their space," he explained, as if apologizing. Space? I wasn't taking his space. I just wanted to continue being his mother. But Patty was smart, very smart. She never attacked me directly. She never disrespected me to my face. She was more subtle, more poisonous, like when she organized family dinners and forgot to invite me. "Oh, Mrs. Martha, I'm so sorry. It slipped my mind to call you. We're so few people that I didn't think." But she invited her mother, her sisters, her aunts. I always found out later, when Robert told me how much fun they had, or when she started changing the decoration of Robert's house. "Patty has really good taste, Mum. The house looks more modern." Photos of me with Robert when he was a child disappeared from the refrigerator. The throw pillows I had crocheted for the sofa were replaced with more elegant ones. Little by little, my presence was erased from my own son's house. The hardest blow was when the grandchildren were born, David and Sophia, my darlings, my reasons for living after I became a widow. Patty used them as a weapon. "The children need routine, Mrs. Martha. They can't be visiting so often. The children get confused with so many different rules. It's better if they only come on weekends." Weekends turned into once a month. Once a month turned into special days. Special days turned into whenever we can. And Robert, my Robert, let it happen. Every time I said something, he would reply, "Mum, Patty is right. She studied these things. She knows how to manage a modern family." Modern family. Since when did respect for parents go out of style? But what really broke my heart was the day I turned 65. I waited all morning for Robert to arrive with the children. I had made his favorite turkey and mashed potatoes. I had bought a small cake from the bakery. I had set the table nicely with the tablecloth I embroidered when he was little. Robert arrived alone, at 8 in the evening, rushing with a guilty look. "Sorry, Mum. The day got complicated. Patty organized a family meal and—" "A family meal without me?" I asked, and I saw his gaze break. "Well, well, it was Patty's cousin's birthday too, and they decided to combine them, and—" That's when I understood. I was no longer family. I was the uncomfortable obligation that had to be attended to when there was spare time. That night, alone in my kitchen, eating cold turkey and looking at my untouched cake, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg for love. I wasn't going to plead for attention. I was going to maintain my dignity and wait for Robert to remember who had been there when his world fell apart. 3 years passed since that birthday. 3 years in which I tried to be the perfect mother-in-law, the grandmother who doesn't bother, the woman who settles for the crumbs of affection she's given. Until that invitation to Miami Beach came, which I thought was the golden opportunity to win back my family. How foolish I was. But that night, hiding behind the door, listening to Patty call me a submissive old lady, I understood something that changed me forever. I hadn't lost an ungrateful son. I had raised a good man who was being manipulated by a calculating woman. And if Patty thought she could keep playing with me as she had for 5 years, she was about to find out how wrong she was. Because what I found on her cell phone that morning not only confirmed her intentions, it showed me how far she was willing to go to take away the only thing I had left, my home. The call came one Tuesday afternoon while I was watering my geraniums in my small backyard. It was Patty, and her voice sounded strangely cheerful, almost affectionate. "Mrs. Martha, how are you? Look, I have a wonderful idea and wanted to consult you." Consult me. That word made me feel important for the first time in years. Patty never consulted me about anything. She didn't even notify me when family plans changed. "Tell me, dear," I replied, and even now I'm embarrassed to admit the hope that was in my voice. "I was thinking it's time for the whole family to take a vacation together. The children are growing up so fast. And well, you look a little tired lately. How about we all go to the beach? Like in the movies, a big house facing the ocean, everyone spending time together, making up for lost time." My heart started beating faster. Had she said, making up for lost time? Had Patty finally realized how distant we had become? "Oh dear, that sounds wonderful," I said, and my voice cracked a little. "It's been so long since we've had real family time." "Exactly. That's why I thought of you first. Robert is so busy with work, and I'm so busy with the kids, that sometimes we forget how important it is to be united, especially now that my mum is so lonely since she became a widow last year." Her mum? That's where I should have raised the alarms, but I was so excited about the idea of a whole week with Robert and my grandchildren that I didn't fully process what she had said. "And where were you thinking?" I asked, already imagining myself building sandcastles with David and Sophia. "Well, I was looking, and Miami Beach has some beautiful vacation homes, with private pools, ocean views, a yard for the kids to play. It would be perfect. The problem is—" She paused, and like a fool, I took the bait. "What problem, dear?" "Well, With the kids' school expenses and Robert's business expansion, we're a little tight this month. But don't worry, we'll find a way. Maybe instead of a week, we could just go for a long weekend to a simpler hotel. A simpler hotel. I had already dreamed of that house facing the ocean, of waking up to the sound of the waves and watching my grandchildren run on the beach. How much would the house you mentioned cost? I asked, although I already knew where this conversation was going. Oh, Mrs. Martha, I don't want to worry you with those things. It's about $3,500 for the week, but it's super well equipped. It has 5 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a terrace with an ocean view, even cleaning service included. But as I said, don't worry, we'll find something cheaper. $3,500, exactly what I had saved in my emergency account. The money I had put together, penny by penny for 3 years, saving everything I could from my pension, just in case. And that's where Patty showed how smart she was at manipulating. You know what, Mrs. Martha? Better leave it. I don't want you to feel obligated to anything. Robert and I will find a way to take a vacation later, when the financial situation improves. The kids will understand. The kids will understand? My grandchildren, who had asked me last week when we were going to the beach together, were going to understand that Grandma hadn't made the effort to take them. No, wait, Patty, I said quickly. Let me think about it. But there was nothing left to think about. In my mind, I was already seeing David learning to swim in that private pool, Sophia collecting seashells on the beach, Robert relaxed for the first time in years, remembering why he loved his mother so much. You know what, dear? I'll pay for the house. There was a silence on the other end of the line that lasted barely a second, but now, remembering it, it seems eternal. A silence in which I'm sure Patty smiled like a shark that has just smelled blood. Really, Mrs. Martha? Oh no, I can't let you do that. That's a lot of money. Dear, that's what I work for, so my family can be well. Besides, I haven't treated myself like this in years. It will be my gift to all of us. But Mrs. Martha, are you sure? I just don't want you to feel— I'm absolutely sure, I interrupted her. In fact, I'm excited to be able to do it. It's been so long since we organized something like this as a family. Oh, that's exciting. The kids are going to be thrilled. And Robert is going to be so grateful. He always says you're the best mum in the world. Robert says that. My heart swelled with joy. Maybe things weren't as bad as I thought. Maybe this was the opportunity we had been waiting for to be the united family we once were. Just let me book the house right now before we lose it, Patty said urgently. Can you give me your card details? I should have said that I would make the reservation myself. I should have asked for more details. I should have paid attention to how quickly she had accepted my offer. But I was so excited, so full of hope after years of feeling excluded, that I gave her all my information without thinking twice. Done, Mrs. Martha. It's booked from August 15th to the 22nd. A whole week of family time. It's going to be perfect. How exciting, dear. And does Robert know yet? I'm going to tell him as soon as he gets home from work. He's going to be thrilled that you made this possible. That night, I went to bed feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. I had invested my savings in something worth more than any amount: quality time with my family. A whole week where we could talk, laugh, and remember why we loved each other. I dreamed of breakfasts on the terrace overlooking the ocean, with Robert telling me how the business was going while we drank coffee, with Patty and me cooking together for the whole family, with my grandchildren running toward me shouting, "Grandma!" on that perfect beach. How naive I was. Because what I didn't know was that Patty already had everything planned. She already knew exactly what that week would be like, who would sleep where, and what my place would be in her vacation home. What I also didn't know was that the call on Tuesday hadn't been a coincidence, and that what Patty had planned for me was much worse than sleeping on a sofa. The flight to Miami Beach was the last time I truly felt happy on that vacation. David and Sophia were thrilled, asking me every 5 minutes if we had arrived yet, if the pool was huge, if we were going to see sea turtles. Robert looked relaxed for the first time in months, and even Patty seemed in a good mood. "Mrs. Martha, how smart you were to choose this house," she told me as the plane descended. "The children are going to have precious memories of this vacation." I smiled, my heart full. I had finally done something right. I had finally managed to give my family something valuable. But from the moment we arrived at the house, something felt strange. The house was beautiful. I won't deny it. Exactly as Patty had described it. White, modern, with an immense terrace that opened straight onto the turquoise ocean, a yard with palm trees, and a pool that sparkled under the Florida sun. It was the paradise I had imagined in my dreams. The problem wasn't the house. The problem was how Patty acted from the second she set foot in the entrance. "Kids, come here. I'm going to show you your room," she shouted, taking the keys from the driver and walking as if she owned the place. "Robert, my love, bring the heaviest bags. Mrs. Martha, don't worry about a thing, just relax." Relax? I wanted to participate. I wanted to see the rooms, choose where I would stay, explore the kitchen where I planned to prepare special breakfasts for them all week. But Patty had already taken total control. "Look how lovely," she was saying, opening doors and windows as if it were her home all her life. "Robert, this is our room, isn't it perfect? It has a walk-in closet and a private bathroom with a jacuzzi." Then she ran to another room. "Kids, come see, you have bunk beds and an incredible view of the yard." I followed her like a tourist in my own reservation, carrying my small bag, waiting for her to assign me a spot in the paradise I had paid for. "And Mrs. Martha," she finally said, almost as if she had forgotten about me, "you can stay in the guest room. It's very comfortable. It has its own bathroom, and it's nice and cool with the air conditioning." The guest room. In the house I had rented, I was the guest, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing that the real lady of the house was neither Patty nor me. It was Linda, Patty's mother, who arrived that same afternoon in a taxi from the airport, as if it had been planned all along. "Dear, what a beautiful house you chose," she shouted to Patty while hugging her. "The rooms are spacious, and that terrace, perfect for my morning yoga." Her morning yoga? Did Mrs. Linda already know where she was going to exercise in my house? "Mum, I'm going to show you your room. It's the master with the best ocean view," Patty said, and I felt like I had been slapped. The master room, for Patty's mother. And where was I going to end up? "Patty," I said softly, trying not to sound annoyed in front of the children. "I thought we were going to organize ourselves together. I didn't know your mum was coming." "Oh, Mrs. Martha, I forgot to mention it. My mum is going through a very difficult time since she became a widow, and I thought this vacation would do her a lot of good. You understand, right? Women our age need family support." Women our age? Linda was 62, I was 67, but apparently she deserved the master room and I deserved the guest room. "Of course, dear," I replied, because what else could I say? The children were there, running around excitedly, and I didn't want to be the sourpuss who ruined the first day. But Robert, my Robert, didn't say anything, not a word of protest, not even, "Mum, are you comfortable with this arrangement?" Nothing. During that first afternoon, while I was unpacking in my guest room, I listened to the voices of Patty and her mother, organizing the whole week as if I didn't exist. "Tomorrow we can go to the Everglades, but early to avoid the heat. Wednesday is perfect for the snorkeling tour. The kids will love it. Friday, we can have the special dinner on the terrace. I brought my secret recipe for crab cakes. Her secret recipe? In the kitchen that I was paying for. I went down to the living room expecting to join the family planning, but when I arrived, Patty and her mother had already finished organizing everything. Mrs. Martha, have you settled in? Look, we have the whole week planned. It's going to be amazing. They showed me a handwritten list with all the activities, schedules, even the menus for each day. Everything decided without consulting me, as if I were a last-minute boarder in my own paid vacation. And what can I do to help? I asked, trying to sound useful. Oh, don't worry about a thing, Patty told me with that smile I was starting to hate. Just relax and enjoy yourself. Linda and I have it all organized. Linda and I, as if they were the hostesses and I was the guest who had to be grateful for being included. That night, during the dinner they had prepared with the ingredients I had paid for, I had to sit at the end of the table while Patty and her mother occupied the head seats, like the true matriarchs of the family. Robert was absorbed in his cell phone, answering work emails. The children ate excitedly, recounting everything they wanted to do the next day, and I felt like an invisible ghost at my own table. Mrs. Martha, you can stay resting at the house tomorrow if you like, Linda told me with false consideration. The Everglades tour is very strenuous for, well, you understand. For what? For old ladies like me? No, thank you. I'm going, I replied with more firmness than I had used in years. I've always wanted to see the alligators. Patty and her mother exchanged a look that I didn't like at all. Of course, Mrs. Martha. Whatever you prefer, Patty said. I just warn you that it's a lot of walking in the sun. As if I were so fragile that I couldn't walk. As if I hadn't worked on my feet 8 hours a day for 30 years of my life. That night, lying in my guest room, while listening to the laughter of Patty and her mother on the terrace enjoying the wine I had paid for, I understood that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. I hadn't organized a family vacation. I had paid $3,500 to be humiliated in high definition in front of the Caribbean Sea. But what came the next day made me understand that the humiliation was just beginning. And when Patty thought I was asleep and I heard her phone conversation with her sister, I knew that everything had been a trap from the beginning. The second day in Miami Beach was when I understood that I hadn't come on vacation. I had come to witness my own destruction as the matriarch of my family. It all started in the Everglades. Despite Patty's warnings about how strenuous the tour would be for me, I was the first one on the bus and the last one to get tired walking among the mangroves. While Linda complained about the heat every 5 minutes and Patty looked for shade to take perfect selfies, I listened to the guide explain the Florida history with the curiosity of a child. Grandma, did you know that the Seminole was super clever? David asked me, holding my sweaty hand as we walked toward the observation tower. Of course, my love, and they were very brave too, I replied, carrying him when he got tired, even though Patty shouted from behind, Mrs. Martha, don't carry him. You'll hurt your back. Hurt my back? I had carried Robert until he was 5 years old while working double shifts. But the real humiliation began that night, when we returned to the house exhausted and happy. The children had fallen asleep on the way. Robert carried them to their room, and I headed to mine to take a shower and wash off the day's dust. When I opened my room door, I froze. All my things were packed in my suitcase, placed on the bed as if I were an unwanted guest who had to leave. Patty! I yelled from my room, my heart pounding so hard I thought I was going to have a heart attack. She appeared at the door with that fake smile I knew so well, but this time with a glint in her eyes that gave me the chills. Oh, Mrs. Martha, how embarrassing. I forgot to tell you. My cousin Alice just arrived by surprise with her husband, and they urgently need a room. They're on their honeymoon, can you imagine? I couldn't say no. Her cousin, in my vacation home, and I had to leave my room for strangers. But Patty, I said, trying to stay calm, where am I going to sleep? Oh, don't worry. The sofa in the living room is super comfortable. It even has memory foam cushions. You'll be better off than in any five-star hotel. The sofa. At my 67 years old, after paying $3,500, after working my whole life to give my family everything, they were sending me to sleep on the sofa as if I were a beggar. And can't she stay in another room? I asked, feeling my voice break. What other room, Mrs. Martha? My mum is in the master. We're in the second. The children are in the third. There are no more rooms. Yes, there were more rooms. There was a small study in the back that had a sofa bed, but clearly that was reserved for storing Patty's and her mother's things, as if it were their personal closet. Patty, I paid for this house, I told her firmly for the first time, and I saw her face change for a second. Yes, Mrs. Martha, and we all thank you very much. That's why we don't want you to worry about anything. We'll make sure everyone is comfortable. You just relax. Relax? On the living room sofa? Robert appeared at that moment, sweating and tired from carrying sleeping children. What's going on here? He asked, seeing our tense faces. Nothing, my love, Patty immediately said. I was just explaining to your mum that Alice and Ricardo arrived by surprise and we need to rearrange the rooms. Ah, perfect, Robert said without even asking for details. Have you eaten dinner yet? I'm starving. Perfect. Did he think it was perfect that his mother was sleeping on the sofa while strangers occupied her room? That night was the longest of my life. I lay on that sofa in my cotton nightgown, covering myself with a thin blanket Patty had found in the cleaning closet, listening to the laughter of my entire family, enjoying their rooms in the house I had paid for. I listened to the children excitedly talking in their room about everything they had seen that day. I listened to Robert and Patty talking in low voices in their air-conditioned room. I listened to Linda moving around in the master room that should have been mine, and there I was, on the living room sofa, feeling every spring dig into my back, wondering how I had become so insignificant in my own family. But what really destroyed me happened at 2 in the morning. Patty came down to the kitchen to get water and didn't realize I was awake. She spoke softly on the phone, but in that house, everything could be heard. Carol, can you believe how easy it was? She was saying to her sister with a chilling laugh. The old lady paid for everything without asking questions. $3,500, can you believe it? And now she doesn't even dare to complain that I sent her to the sofa. Old lady. The old lady who paid for everything. No, she won't say anything. She's one of those mothers-in-law who does everything to be liked. Robert is already completely on my side. He doesn't defend her like he used to. The truth is, I even feel sorry for how desperate she is for attention. Desperate for attention? For wanting to be treated with respect on the vacation I myself was paying for? I swear it's pathetic, Carol. Today at the Everglades, she started carrying David as if she were a young grandmother, just to get attention. Robert was even embarrassed. Robert was embarrassed of me? For carrying my own grandson? But what came next was the dagger that pierced my heart. The best part is that now that I've confirmed she's this submissive, we can proceed with the plan I told you about. Robert is almost convinced that she needs, more specialized care. He says he's noticed her being more forgetful lately, more fragile. Plan? What plan? And what specialized care were they talking about? Yes, sis. In 6 months, maximum, we'll have her somewhere where she's well cared for, and we can live peacefully without her always meddling in our affairs. In that moment, I understood everything. It wasn't just about humiliating me on a vacation. It was about getting me out of Robert's life forever. I lay there, stretched out on that sofa, crying silently while Patty went back up to her room in my house, planning how to institutionalize me to keep my son completely. For the first time in my life, I felt like I wanted to die. I felt like I had nothing left to fight for, that I had raised a son who saw me as a nuisance, that I had given my whole life for a family that considered me a problem to be solved. But then, something happened inside me, something I hadn't felt since I was 23 years old and widowed with a baby in my arms. Rage. Pure rage that burned inside me like volcanic lava. No, I wasn't going to let them send me to a nursing home as if I were trash. I wasn't going to allow Patty to destroy everything I had built with so much sacrifice. And I definitely wasn't going to keep being the submissive old lady who settled for scraps. Because what Patty didn't know was that night, while she slept peacefully believing she had me controlled, I found her forgotten cell phone in the kitchen. And what I discovered there gave me the weapons to destroy her perfect world. At 4 in the morning, when I could no longer pretend I was asleep on that sofa that had become my torture bed, I decided to get up for water. My back hurt as if I had been beaten, and my eyes were swollen from crying silently. The house was completely silent. I could only hear Linda's distant snoring from the master room, which should have been mine, and the ocean waves, which now sounded like a mockery of my suffering. I walked barefoot toward the kitchen, trying not to make noise in my own vacation house, when I saw it, Patty's cell phone, lying on the kitchen counter, glowing with the screen on. She had forgotten it after her late-night call with her sister Carol. Normally, I would never have touched another person's phone. I was raised with values, with respect for others' privacy. But after hearing her call me old lady and pathetic, after finding out they had a plan to institutionalize me, I had no dignity left to protect. I picked up the phone with trembling hands. The screen was unlocked. Patty had been so careless in her triumph that she hadn't even set a password. The first messages I saw were with her sister Carol, and what I read confirmed that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. Everything had been calculated from the beginning. Carol, did you convince her to pay? Patty, super easy. I told her it was to bring the family together and she took the bait. $3,500 right out of her savings. Carol, ha 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 ha, you're wicked, and Robert doesn't suspect anything. Patty, not at all. He's so caught up in the business problems that he doesn't even notice what's happening at home. Business problems? What problems? Robert had always told me everything was going great. I kept reading, and every message was a deeper stab. Patty, the best part is that I already have the psychologist on my side. I told him the mother-in-law is very forgetful, that sometimes she doesn't recognize the grandchildren, that the other day she forgot to turn off the gas. Carol, is that true? Patty, please, the old lady is more lucid than you and me combined, but the doctor doesn't know that. I already have the psychological report that says she needs constant supervision. A psychological report. She had fabricated a false psychological report to justify institutionalizing me. My hands trembled so much I almost dropped the phone. But there was more, much more. I went into the messages with someone named Dr. Purr, James, and what I found took the air out of my lungs. Dr. James, Mrs. Patty, the papers for the institutionalization are ready. With the psychological report you sent me, there will be no problem arguing mental incapacity. Patty, perfect. And what about the property issue? Dr. James, your husband, as the sole heir, can manage all of his mother's assets. The house, the bank accounts, everything immediately transfers to his administration. My house, they wanted my house. The little two-bedroom house that I had worked 30 years for, that I had paid for dollar by dollar with the sweat of my brow, for which I had sacrificed even food so as not to miss a single monthly payment. With my eyes full of tears of rage, I continued investigating on that phone that had become my family's Pandora's box. I found a conversation with a certain Attorney Smith that chilled my blood. Attorney Smith: Patty, the numbers don't lie. Robert's company has debts of $200,000. If they don't pay in the next 3 months, there will be foreclosures. Patty: What if we sell the old lady's house? Attorney Smith: With the $180,000 it's worth, they cover almost all the debt. But she needs to sign voluntarily, or Robert needs legal power over her assets. $200,000 of debt. Robert was ruined, and I didn't know it. Patty didn't just want to take away my home out of malice. She needed me out of the way to save her assets with my sacrifice. But what I found next showed me the extent of this woman's betrayal. Photos. Hundreds of photos in a hidden folder. Photos of Patty with a man who was not Robert. Kissing, hugging, in elegant restaurants, in hotels, in situations that left no room for doubt. And the messages with that man saved under the name insurance work. Insurance work. Love, we're almost ready. As soon as the old lady is admitted and her house is sold, Robert can declare bankruptcy. We lose the company, but we save the money. Patty: And after? Insurance work. Then I divorce my wife, you divorce Robert, and we go live in Puerto Rico with the clean money. It couldn't be real. It couldn't be that my daughter-in-law was planning not only to steal my house and institutionalize me, but also to destroy Robert financially and emotionally to run off with her lover. I stood there in that kitchen at 5 in the morning, reading message after message that shattered every illusion I had about my family. Patty wasn't just manipulative. She was a professional con artist who had seen the perfect victims in Robert and me. But there was something else. Something that gave me the first spark of hope in days. A message from just 2 hours before, when Patty thought I was asleep on the sofa. Patty: Carol, tomorrow night the old lady is going to sign the papers. I'm going to tell her they are health insurance documents, but they are actually the legal powers we need. Tomorrow. I had less than 24 hours before they made me sign my own civil death sentence. At that moment, standing in that kitchen with my enemy's phone in my hands, I made the most important decision of my 67 years of life. I was no longer going to be the victim. Silently, I took photos of every message, every conversation, every compromising image. My old cell phone took forever to save each screenshot, but I didn't care. I documented everything, every betrayal, every lie, every piece of evidence that Patty was not who she pretended to be. When I finished, I put her phone back exactly where I had found it and returned to my sofa. But I was no longer the same woman who had gone to bed crying 3 hours earlier. Now I was a woman with information, a woman with evidence, a woman who knew exactly what she was fighting against. Patty had made the biggest mistake of her life, underestimating an American woman who had raised a son alone, who had worked double shifts for 30 years, and who had survived everything life had thrown at her. That morning, while she slept peacefully, believing she had everything under control, I began to plan the most perfect revenge you can imagine. Because if Patty wanted to play dirty, she was about to discover that she had chosen the wrong opponent, and that this submissive old lady had cards up her sleeve that she never would have imagined. The dawn of the third day in Miami Beach found me completely different. I was no longer the broken woman who had gone to bed on that sofa. I was a woman with a mission, to protect what I had built in 67 years of life, and to teach Patty that she had chosen the wrong victim. While the rest of the house slept, I was already awake, mentally organizing every piece of information I had discovered. The photos of the lover, Robert's secret debts, the plan to institutionalize me, the forced sale of my house. Everything was connected like a macabre jigsaw puzzle, and I was the only one who had the full picture. The first thing I did was act normal. When Patty came down for breakfast with her usual fake smile, I already had the coffee ready and was making scrambled eggs and hash browns for the whole family. "Oh, Mrs. Martha, how did you sleep? Did you sleep well on the sofa?" she asked me with that sweet voice I now knew was pure poison. "Very well, dear," I lied to her with the best smile I could muster. "Even better than in my bed at home. This sea air relaxes me so much." I saw her shoulders relax. She thought she had won, that she had completely tamed me, that I was so submissive I even thanked her for making me sleep on the sofa. How wrong she was. During breakfast, while Robert checked his work emails with a worried look and the children planned their day at the beach, I observed Patty like a hawk studies its prey before attacking. Every gesture, every word, every glance she exchanged with her mother Linda. "Robert, my love," Patty said, while pouring him more coffee, "don't you think your mum looks a little tired lately?" There it was, the first move of her plan to make me seem mentally fragile. "Mum?" Robert looked at me attentively for the first time in days. "Are you feeling okay? I noticed you were a little quiet last night." "I'm perfect, son," I replied firmly. "It's just that at my age, I don't have the energy you young people have. But mentally, I'm clearer than ever." Patty frowned for a fraction of a second. She didn't like my answer. She expected me to confirm her narrative of weakness. "It's just that I've noticed her being a little, how should I put it without offending you? A little absent-minded," Patty insisted. "Yesterday at the Everglades, she forgot where she put her purse like 3 times." A lie, I had never forgotten anything, but Robert nodded as if he remembered something. "Now that you mention it, at home too. The other day I came home, and you had left the stove on, Mum." The stove on? I had never done that in my life, but I saw Patty smile subtly. She had been planting those ideas in Robert's head for months, maybe years. In that moment, I understood the diabolical genius of her plan. It hadn't just been about humiliating me on this vacation. It had been a long, slow process of making my own son doubt my mental capacity. And I had been so focused on trying to be the perfect mother-in-law that I hadn't realized it. "Robert," I said, looking him directly in the eyes, "I have never in my life left the stove on, not for one day. In fact, I always check twice before leaving the house." "Of course, Mrs. Martha," Patty intervened quickly. "It was surely an unimportant oversight. It happens to all of us." But I wasn't going to let her control the narrative anymore. "Patty, since we're talking about oversights," I said with an angelic smile, "didn't you forget your cell phone in the kitchen last night? I saw it there when I got up for water." She went pale, completely pale. "My cell phone? Yes, right there on the counter. Good thing I put it in the drawer so it wouldn't fall. Wouldn't want anyone to see it lying around." The way she looked at me in that moment confirmed that she knew that I knew, but she couldn't say anything in front of Robert and the children. I spent the rest of the day being the perfect grandmother. I played with David and Sophia in the pool, told them stories of when their father was little, carried them when they were tired of swimming. But mentally, I was working on my plan. Every time Patty tried to make a comment about my supposed mental fragility, I proved the opposite. I remembered details she had forgotten, solved problems no one else could. I even helped Robert with some calculations for his work that he had on his cell phone. "Your mum was always very good with numbers," he told Robert, and I saw Patty get annoyed because it didn't fit her narrative of the senile mother-in-law. In the afternoon, when Patty went for a walk on the beach, which I knew was to talk to her lover without being heard, I took the opportunity to approach Robert. "Son," I said to him while we were alone on the terrace. "How's the business? You look very worried." His face immediately changed. That was his weak spot. "It's complicated, Mum, but I don't want you to worry. We'll get through this." "Very complicated?" I insisted with the most loving voice I could. "It's just temporary cash flow problems, nothing that can't be solved." Cash flow? $200,000 of debt was not a cash flow problem. "And is Patty helping you? She studied administration, right?" "Yes, she supports me a lot. In fact, it was her idea that we shouldn't tell you anything so you wouldn't worry." Patty's idea, of course, to keep me in ignorance so she could execute her plan without interference. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep and I was back on my torture sofa, I began the second phase of my operation. I took out my old cell phone and started researching everything I had seen on Patty's phone. I searched for Dr. James, who had made the false psychological report. I searched for Attorney Smith, who was handling Robert's fraudulent bankruptcy. With the house's slow Wi-Fi connection, it took me hours, but I found valuable information. Dr. James had been sanctioned twice for falsifying medical reports. Attorney Smith was known for helping his clients hide assets before declaring bankruptcy. Patty hadn't just chosen me as a victim. She had built an entire network of professional accomplices to execute her scam. But the most important thing I did that night was call my neighbor, Doris. "Doris, it's Martha. Sorry for calling so late." "Martha, how's the vacation? Did you relax a little?" "Doris, I need you to do me a very important favor and not tell anyone we spoke." I explained everything, every detail of what I had discovered, every piece of evidence I had photographed. Doris had been my friend for 20 years. I knew I could trust her. "Martha, are you sure about all this?" "I have the proof, Doris. Photos of everything. But I need you to go to my house early tomorrow and check if anything strange is there, anything Patty or Robert might have changed." "Of course. And Martha, be very careful. If that woman is capable of everything you're telling me, we don't know what else she's capable of." When I hung up the phone, I stayed there in the darkness of the living room, feeling for the first time in days that I wasn't completely alone. I had an ally. I had information. I had evidence. And for the first time since I arrived in Miami Beach, I truly smiled. Patty had made many mistakes, but the biggest of all had been believing that because I was 67 years old, I was automatically harmless. She had underestimated the power of a woman who had raised a son alone in the hardest years in America, who had worked to exhaustion to support her family, who had survived poverty, widowhood, and all the small betrayals that life throws in your path. The next day, I would discover that my plan was just beginning, and that Doris's call would bring me information that would completely change the game in my favor. Doris's call came at 8 in the morning of the fourth day, while I pretended to read a magazine on the terrace, and Patty prepared breakfast, singing as if she were the happiest woman in the world. She had no idea that her perfect world was about to collapse. "Martha, I found something terrible in your house," Doris whispered to me on the phone, and my heart raced. "What did you find?" "Someone was going through your documents. The drawer where you keep the house papers was messy, and Martha, something is missing. The original property title isn't there." My blood ran cold. Patty had sent someone to steal my house papers while I was in Miami Beach. Her plan was more elaborate than I had imagined. "But relax," Doris continued. "I found it. They dropped it behind the filing cabinet when they were taking it out. The clumsy people didn't notice." Thank God. Without those papers, I had no way to prove the house was mine if Patty managed to make me sign a power of attorney. "Doris, I need you to do one more thing. Go to the public registry of property and get a certified copy of my title." Let it be officially recorded that I am the sole owner. I'm on my way. And Martha, I also spoke with my friend John, the lawyer. I told him everything, and he says what they're doing is aggravated fraud. He says that with the evidence you have, Patty could go to jail for up to 10 years. 10 years. The information gave me a sense of power I hadn't felt since I arrived at this cursed vacation house. After hanging up, I stayed sitting there, watching Patty serve scrambled eggs with the falsest smile in the world, knowing that in a few hours she was going to ask me to sign the papers that would take everything away from me. But I already had my own plan in motion. During breakfast, while Robert played with the children in the pool and Linda read a magazine in the yard, Patty approached me with a look of feigned concern. "Mrs. Martha, I need to talk to you about something important." Here it came, the moment I had been waiting for. "Of course, dear. Tell me." "It's about your health insurance. Robert asked me to help you update some documents because the legislation has changed, and if we don't sign them before returning to New York, you could lose all your benefits." Liar. What a professional liar. "What kind of documents?" I asked, feigning total innocence. "They are just some powers of attorney so Robert can handle procedures for you when necessary. You know how complicated government offices are. It's better to have everything prepared just in case." Just in case they institutionalized me, she meant. "And where are those papers?" "I brought them from New York. I have them in my suitcase. You just need to sign them with 2 witnesses. And I already asked my mum to help us." Her mum as a witness. How convenient. "You know what, Patty? That sounds perfect. But first I want to consult with my own lawyer, just as a precaution." Her face completely changed. "Your lawyer? Why, Mrs. Martha? They are standard health insurance documents." "It's just that I'm old, dear. And at my age, it's better to be cautious with everything one signs. Don't you think?" "But Mrs. Martha, we need to sign them today. Tomorrow there's no time because it's Saturday and the offices are closed." Of course, urgency is always part of scams, pressuring the victim so they don't have time to think. "Don't worry," I told her with my best naive grandmother smile. "My lawyer also works Saturdays. I'll call him right now." And yes, I called him. But it wasn't my lawyer. It was Doris's friend John, who was already waiting for my call. "Attorney Smith, this is Martha Morales. My friend Doris gave me your number." "Mrs. Martha, Doris already told me everything. Are they trying to make you sign something?" "Yes, right now. They say they are health insurance documents, but we already know the truth." "Perfect. This is what you're going to do." Attorney John explained every step of my new strategy. I wasn't just going to prevent them from scamming me. I was going to turn the tables completely. That afternoon, while Patty nervously paced around the house because I hadn't signed her papers, I made my master move. I called Robert when he was alone on the terrace. "Son, sit down. I need to tell you something very important about the business." He immediately tensed up. "What is it, Mum?" "I know you have debts of $200,000. I know the company is bankrupt. And I know Patty has been hiding very important information from you." He was speechless, literally with his mouth open. "How? How do you know that?" "Because your wife is not as careful as she thinks, and because a mother always knows when her son is in trouble." "Mum, I didn't want to worry you. Patty said it was better." "Robert," I interrupted him. "Did you know Patty wants me to sign legal powers so you can sell my house without consulting me?" "What?" "No, Mum. The papers she told you to sign were for health insurance." I saw it in his eyes. Robert wasn't completely involved in the scam. Patty had been manipulating him too. "Son, Tomorrow we're going to have a family meeting. You, Patty, her mum, and me. And you're going to hear some things about your wife that will change your life forever. Mum, you're scaring me. What are you talking about? That your wife is not who you think she is, and that tomorrow night you'll know the whole truth. That night, lying for the last time on the living room sofa of my vacation house, I smiled up at the ceiling. Patty had spent all day trying to convince me to sign her papers. She had tried to pressure me, manipulate me. She had even cried, feigning distress, telling me she just wanted to help me. But it was too late for her, because while she believed I was a scared old lady who didn't know how to defend herself, I had been moving pieces on a chessboard she didn't even know existed. Tomorrow, on that very terrace where I had felt so humiliated, Patty was going to discover that she had made the biggest mistake of her life. And when Robert saw the photos of his wife with another man, when he heard the recordings of their conversations, when he knew how she had planned to destroy his own mother, that's when he would know who the woman he had married truly was. The last day in Miami Beach dawned perfectly. Blue sky, crystal clear ocean, gentle breeze moving the curtains on the terrace. It seemed even the weather knew something important was going to happen that day. Patty woke up early, more nervous than ever. She had tried all night to convince me to sign her papers, even getting to the point of tears, telling me Robert would be angry with her if we returned to New York without the signed insurance documents. What a great actress. She even knew how to produce fake tears. "Mrs. Martha, please," she begged me during breakfast, while Robert packed the bags. "It's only 2 signatures. The attorney says if we don't submit them today, they'll cancel your medical policy." "I already told you, dear. I want my lawyer to review everything first. This afternoon, after lunch, we'll have the meeting you proposed." I saw her exchange desperate glances with her mother Linda. Her perfect plan was crumbling, and she didn't know why. At 4 in the afternoon, when the sun began to set and painted the sky in golden colours, I called the whole family to the terrace. "Family," I said in a firm voice, "I need to talk to all of you about something very important before we return to New York tomorrow." Robert sat next to me, Patty and her mother opposite. The children were watching cartoons in the room. It was the perfect moment. "Patty, you said I needed to sign some health insurance documents, right?" "Yes, Mrs. Martha, so you don't lose your benefits." "And you said they were standard documents, that nothing would happen if I signed them." "Exactly." I took out a folder I had prepared during the morning, a folder with all the evidence I had collected. "Then you won't mind if I read exactly what these papers say, right?" She went pale, but nodded because she had no other choice. "These are not health insurance documents, Patty. They are full legal powers of attorney that would give Robert total control over my house, my bank accounts, and would allow him to institutionalize me in any facility he deems necessary." Robert jumped in his chair. "What, Patty? What is my mum talking about?" "Robert, calm down," Patty said in a trembling voice. "There must be a misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," I interrupted her, and took out the first photo from the folder. "This is a photo of the messages on your cell phone, where you tell your sister Carol that I am a submissive old lady who paid for the vacation without asking questions." Robert took the photo and looked at it. The colour drained from his face. "What is this, Patty?" Patty tried to snatch the photo from him, but I had already taken out the second one. "This is another photo where you talk to Dr. James about a false psychological report to justify that I need constant medical supervision." "Robert, your mum went through my cell phone. It's a violation of privacy," Patty shouted, but she already sounded desperate. "Is this true, Patty?" Robert's voice was broken. "Did you make a false medical report about my mum?" "For your own good. For our good. Your mum needs special care, and you're too busy to notice. Here's the third photo, I continued relentlessly. Your messages with Attorney Smith about the $200,000 of debt in Robert's company and how you plan to sell my house to pay them. Robert stood up as if he had been struck by lightning. $200,000? Patty, you told me it was only $50,000. Robert, calm down. We'll fix it. No, my son shouted for the first time in years. Don't tell me to calm down. You've been lying to me about everything. But I wasn't finished yet. I took out the most devastating photos. And these, Robert, are the photos of your wife with her lover in luxury restaurants and hotels, while you worked like a dog trying to save the business. The silence that followed was deafening. Robert took the photos with trembling hands. Photo after photo of Patty kissing another man, hugging another man, in situations that left no room for doubt. Who is he? Robert asked with a voice I had never heard from him before. A broken, empty voice. Patty was crying, but these were no longer manipulative tears. They were tears of terror because she knew everything was over. Robert, I can explain. Who is he? My son yelled with all the fury accumulated from years of being deceived. He's someone who understands me, who supports me. Your husband supported you. Your husband worked his tail off to give you the life you wanted. Then I dropped the final bomb, the one that would make everything explode. Robert, here are the messages where Patty plans to divorce you once they sell my house, to go live in Puerto Rico with this man and the money they took from our family. Robert read the messages in silence. I watched his tears fall onto the paper. You were going to leave me? He asked Patty, with the voice of a hurt child. After everything I did for you, you were going to leave me with nothing? Robert, please, we can fix this. Linda, who had been silent the whole meeting, finally spoke. Patty, is all this true? Mum, you knew about the plan. You helped me. And that's where Linda showed that she at least had some decency that her daughter didn't. I knew you wanted Robert to manage his mother's finances. I didn't know there was a lover, that there were false medical reports, that you had made me an accomplice to a scam. Patty's family fell apart in 5 minutes. Robert was crying from rage and pain. Linda was yelling at her daughter for having deceived her. Patty cried, asking for forgiveness that was already useless. And I sat there, watching justice be served after years of humiliation. Robert, I said in a soft voice, your wife not only wanted to steal my house, she wanted to destroy you too. She wanted to leave you without a family, without money, and without a home. My son looked at me with eyes full of tears, and for the first time in years, he was my little boy again. Mum, forgive me. Forgive me for not believing you. Forgive me for letting her treat you like that. There's nothing to forgive, son. A mother always protects her children, even if they don't realize it. Patty tried one last time to save her own skin. Robert, please, we can go to couples therapy. We can fix this. But Robert was no longer the manipulable man he had been for 5 years. No, Patty, it's over. Tomorrow I start the divorce proceedings. And when Patty realized that she had lost everything, her husband, her family, her perfect plan, and that she now faced years in prison for fraud, her last card was to threaten me with something that chilled my blood and changed the course of this entire story. Patty's final threat came when she had nothing left to lose. When she realized that Robert was not going to forgive her, that her mother had repudiated her, and that all her evidence was in my hands, she showed her claws one last time. Fine, she yelled with a voice I had never heard from her, full of pure venom. If you're going to destroy me, I also have information that can destroy you. Robert and I looked at her, not understanding what she was talking about. Robert, your precious company didn't go bankrupt because of bad luck. It went bankrupt because you and your partner were diverting government money for 2 years. I have all the fake invoices you made. The world stopped. Robert went white as a sheet. What are you talking about, Patty? She's talking about the government contracts you inflated, the works you charged for without finishing, the materials you never bought but reported as expenses. Robert collapsed into the chair. I saw in his eyes that it was true. Mom, he said in a broken voice, I didn't know it was illegal. My partner told me everyone did it, that it was the only way to be competitive. Patty smiled with pure malice. Martha, if you report me for fraud, I'll report Robert for corruption. Your perfect son is going to go to jail for 10 years. In that moment, I understood the endgame. Patty had been collecting incriminating information on Robert from the beginning, not out of love, but as life insurance for when this moment arrived. But she didn't know the woman she was messing with. Patty, I said with a calm that surprised even me. You're right. Robert made serious mistakes. And do you know what we're going to do about it? What? She asked, thinking she had won. We're going to confess everything. Tomorrow morning. Robert is going to return every last dollar that doesn't belong to him. He's going to pay the fines. He's going to assume the consequences of his actions. And he's going to rebuild his life honestly. Robert looked at me astonished. Mum? Because that's how my mother raised me, and that's how I raised you. Mistakes are confessed, repaired, and learned from, but they never, ever become chains for others to manipulate us. Patty couldn't believe what she was hearing. He's rich and corrupt, and I prefer him to pay for his mistakes with dignity than to live his whole life blackmailed by you. In that moment, Robert stood up, approached me, and hugged me as he hadn't hugged me since he was a child. You're right, Mum. We're going to fix everything, no matter the consequences. Patty had lost her last card. Her blackmail didn't work because she didn't understand that for a true family, honesty is worth more than money. 3 months later, I am here telling you this story from my renovated little house in Queens, New York. Robert kept his word, confessed everything, returned the money, paid the fines, and spent 6 months in prison. But when he came out truly free, without debt, without lies, without pending blackmail. Patty faced charges of fraud, falsification of documents, and attempted scam. She is serving 5 years in prison. Her lover abandoned her as soon as he found out she had no money left to steal. Linda apologized to me in tears. She hadn't known the magnitude of what her daughter was planning. Now she comes to invite me on Sundays, and we drink coffee while we talk about our grandchildren. Robert got divorced, sold everything he had left of the company, and now works as an engineer for an honest construction company. He earns less money, but he sleeps soundly every night. My grandchildren come to stay with me on weekends. David already knows how to make cinnamon coffee like my grandmother taught me, and Sophia is learning to embroider while she tells me about school. But the most important thing I gained from all of this was not justice. It was something I had lost without realizing it for years: my dignity. I learned that true love is not begged for, that respect is not negotiated, that at 67 or any age, a woman has the right to be treated as what she is, a valuable human being, not a nuisance to be tolerated. I learned that being kind doesn't mean being submissive, that being loving doesn't mean accepting mistreatment, that being a grandmother doesn't mean becoming invisible. For years, I believed my job as a mother was finished when Robert got married. Now I know that my job as a woman never ends, that I have the right to take up space, to have opinions, to be heard, to be respected. Not all women of my generation had the opportunities that young women have today, but that doesn't mean we have to settle for scraps of affection or crumbs of respect. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. It's never too late to defend yourself. It's never too late to set boundaries. It's never too late to say enough. And if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember, the family that makes you feel small is not family. True family embraces you when you fall. It doesn't push you to fall harder. Now, when I wake up every morning in my little house, water my geraniums, prepare my coffee, and watch the sun rise over my yard, I know this is my life, a life I built with work, defended with courage, and which I will live with dignity until the last day. Because an American woman who has lived 67 years, who raised a son alone, who worked tirelessly for her family, and who survived all the betrayals life threw at her, deserves to live her golden years in peace, with respect, and surrounded only by true love. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect on the respect our elders deserve, or if you know someone who needs to hear this message, leave me a comment telling me where you're following us from. Like if you believe all grandmothers in the world deserve to be treated with dignity, and subscribe to continue sharing real stories that teach us. It's never too late to defend ourselves, because at the end of the day, the sweetest revenge is not destroying the person who hurt you. It's living so well that they regret ever underestimating you.